Hello to you, my cosmic dragon friends. We are back with another collective reading. This is intended as timeless, but it's also very timeful, I'm being told by my spirit guides. So I was guided to come on and do a collective reading for everyone today. And I particularly want to focus on the divine feminine because that's the theme that's coming up for me today, and it seems very important. And I've had some revelations from my guides as well, which are leading me to talk about this. So I wanted to use these decks today. I have the Oracle of the Roses, which is very pretty, by Sherilyn Darcy, which is also one of my names, not Darcy, Rose, and my daughters. But this deck is very special. This was actually created by Jules Rain, who I'm lucky enough to call a friend. Very, very incredible artist, works deeply with the divine feminine energy. And I think she's currently running courses as well, if you check her out. I'll put her website, her information back down in the description below. But she does teach how to do her intuitive artwork as well. So this is her deck, The Art of Intuitive Alchemy Toracle, the symbolic language of self-discovery. And there's beautiful yonis and feminine symbolism all throughout. And it's kind of based on a tarot deck, but with some differences, of course. It's absolutely stunning to work with. I love working with this deck. So this video is not sponsored, I just love her work. And it really encapsulates the divine feminine so beautifully as well. So I really wanted to use it today. So there's a book that came into my consciousness recently. I think it was probably a YouTube short video. I follow some ladies who talk about history, and this particular one was talking about this lady, Marguerite Porete, I guess. I always like the name Marguerite because it means daisy, and I like that. If you've ever done any herbalism with me, you'll know how I feel about daisies. And it's a book called The Mirror of Simple Souls. The title is slightly longer in French, you'll notice, which is the reason I knew I had to get the French version, the original French text, because you always lose something in translation, and being a fluent French speaker myself, I didn't want to lose any of that or lose the translation to somebody's opinion on how it should be translated. But also, when you read a language, there's the energy of the words, the feel of the words. I wanted to fully experience that. So this lady was a very spiritual lady. She was a spiritual teacher. I haven't actually learned that much about her yet, other than she was, well, it says on the back she was a mystic and a Christian poetess. What a lovely word for somebody who writes poems. A poet, a female poet. And she wrote this to help people understand Christian mystery. Now, you guys know I'm not Christian myself, of course. But she wanted people to understand that they could develop their spirituality and to have a deep relationship with the divine without needing the church. And of course, that was basically her downfall. That signed her own death warrant, if you asked me. And she was burned at the stake by our wonderful friends at the church. Because of course she was, because she was a woman daring to speak about spirituality and daring to say that you didn't need to support their business model. So yeah, we shouldn't really be too shocked about that now, should we? So I really was so motivated to get a copy of her work as soon as I learned about her. Now she lived from 1250 to 1310. So she didn't have a bad innings for the time if she was 60 years old when they finally caught up with her. But it's fascinating, and I'm very excited to start reading this. But this brings me on to the subject I want to talk about today. There is something very interesting going on at the moment, and I'm sure you've seen it. We've been talking for a long time, and I certainly have, about the return of the divine feminine. The divine masculine has had the upper hand for way too long now. Men have been ruling the world, haven't they? Everything has been based on male and masculine values. Might is right, you know. the person who can hit the other person with the biggest stick wins. It's all about chasing after money and profit and competing and comparing ourselves with others. And what we're seeing as we move into the age of Aquarius, into a new, more enlightened age, is backing away from those lower masculine energies, because that is the lower masculine, of course. There is the divine masculine, the higher version of the masculine energy. But in order to get there, we must reintegrate the feminine as well, which is why that is coming back in. And I believe that's one of the reasons we are seeing people exploring conversations about gender and sexuality, and things like that in this age, in this era. And it can be very difficult for those people as well. They are living through some difficult lifetimes, some challenging lifetimes. But seeing the divine feminine coming back, I mean, it is incredibly important, but at the same time, what we are witnessing is the dark powers, the dark elites, if you want to call them that, the powers that should not be, what I like to call the powers that were, because I like to put them in the past so we can manifest that. They have gone out of their way to try and distort that, to pull the divine feminine down into dark energy. And one of the ways you pull the divine feminine off track is to make her compete and compare in masculine ways, so to make a woman act like a man. And that's not to say that women can't do things that men can, because of course we blooming can. We know that. But to force us to play their game, well, that's never going to work. We're different. That's, like the old saying, if you judge the value of a fish by its ability to climb a tree, the fish will believe it's an idiot its whole life, to paraphrase that saying. I think it's a Buddhist saying. I forget the exact saying, but it's about judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree. Of course it can't climb a tree, it's a fish. If you're going to judge it on anything, you judge it on its ability to swim. Not that we're judging fish, because that's unnecessary. And this whole thing of judgment and who's the best at this, who was the best at that, who can beat the other person, metaphorically and perhaps physically. That's what we're trying to get away from right now. We are trying to reintegrate the divine feminine. And we can't do that if we make the divine feminine act like a man, if we trick her into thinking that to be fully herself, she must act like a man. And she must take on that mantle and do all things, male and female roles, shall we say. And that just doesn't work. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that women shouldn't go to work. That's not what I'm saying. Not at all. But we are moving into a wiser age where things will look different. We will work this stuff out. And I just wanted to mention that I do have my window open because I wanted you to be able to hear the birds here today. There's a lovely blackbird singing outside, and we have sparrows and starlings that have been visiting us here, as well as our wood pigeons and our magpies. And the occasional peregrine falcon. She likes to come along as well. She's a local bird. She's a local bird. Okay, pun not intended, but I did enjoy that. So, yeah. What I'm finding interesting right now, what I'm seeing, which is a little bit disturbing, but also I know it's part of the path and one of the challenges that we have to overcome. And it has been kind of in the last 20, 30 years, tricking women into believing that they have to act like a man and a woman in order to be a whole woman. Oh, you have to be a mother and go to work full time. Well, you can't do both. You to the best of your ability. You can try and juggle them, and all we have is we've ended up with generations of exhausted women who are trying to do everything, and that's not fair. We try to do so much, and I have total respect for women who do have to do all of those things, and I think it's a shame because you can't give your full attention to something if you're also trying to give your full attention to something else. You just don't have enough hours in the day and enough energy in your body and your spirit to do it. And notice how men aren't expected to do that. men only have to have a job to, and do their work or hobby or whatever to be classed as valuable, whereas women have to be able to do that and raise children and have a nice house, And I was thinking about it because there has been a lot of rebellion in the system. And the rebellion is necessary because we do need to rediscover ourselves as women, as the divine feminine, and find out who we truly are and what our path is, and to integrate the different aspects of ourselves. But something I have found troubling, and I have spoken on this, I spoke about it when Russell Brand converted to Christianity. And I said the answer is not to join a patriarchal system of control, a rigid patriarchal system of control like one of the Christian religions or any of the mainstream religions, to be honest. And I don't count Buddhism in that because it was never supposed to be a religion. But Christianity in particular, and I've seen a lot of people who considered themselves more enlightened or forward-thinking, who were aware of what was going on in the world with the dark powers and how we were being manipulated and how things were being distorted and inverted. And I watched many of them turn to Christianity one after the other and say, oh, look, I found the answer now. And I have talked about this before, so I don't want to go into that again, about how, yes, it feels much safer. It can feel much safer and think, oh, look, I found the answer, hooray, but that's not the answer. We don't have it yet, it's still new. But something I am finding troubling is within these communities of people, and it's definitely more on the right wing of politics, and don't get me wrong, I don't support either side, it's the same bird. I am an anarchist, you guys know, if you've followed me for any length of time. I don't consider government to be legitimate or necessary or desirable. Humanity needs to grow up and look after themselves. So something I found troubling recently is seeing a lot of men, particularly on the right, saying that it's all women's fault. It's all women's fault for voting in the people on the left. It's the women's fault for misunderstanding. They're too stupid. They should have the vote taken away from them. And it's really quite disturbing to see. It's almost as if the political system is trying to cause a fracture between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And of course, yes, it probably is. That is probably one of its functions. I've just never seen it quite so clearly before. And it is troubling, shall I say. But also, it led me to this book, which appeared quite by chance in my feed. I can't remember if it was Instagram or YouTube, but it honestly doesn't matter. And it reminded me that, yes, women, we're not allowed to be the spiritual teachers. We're not allowed to do that. Oh, we weren't. But we do now because I do it. And people very much misunderstand spirituality. And it's really funny, the number of people, sometimes I will comment on something perhaps political or controversial on Instagram. You'll know I'm a little bit controversial if you follow me on Instagram. And you don't have to agree with everything I say, that's fine. I respect other people's opinions. I want us to all get along. I want us to have different opinions and discuss them so that we can find greater, wider, bigger solutions to things. Because I don't consider that I'm the fountain of all knowledge. Of course not. I'm not your guru, as I've said many times before, and I don't want to be. And you don't need one. But I have seen this push against women, against the divine feminine, saying, oh, feminism was a trap, we should never have allowed women out of the kitchen. The 60s was a trap and all these terrible things happened. And I disagree. The feminist movement was actually very helpful for liberating the divine feminine from her shackles. Of course, it was jumped upon by the dark powers, by the dark forces. Of course it was, and they've distorted some of that. But regardless, I think it was very important and very powerful. But I'm looking forward to reading this book. And the title alone, it is different to the translation, because the translation is just the mirror of simple souls. But here in French we have et anéanti, which is something that's kind of been destroyed. And I do that because it's kind of like this shrinking sense that I get, the energy of the word anéanti. And And it adds a whole other dimension. So it's not that your soul is just simple and open, kind of in like a Buddhist sense. It's actually that you've destroyed your ego. That is the sense here that we are aiming to not so much destroy the ego, because we can't do that while we're alive unless we literally become enlightened. And I don't know how to do that. And anyone who says they do can shut up, because they're lying. But it's to have minimized the ego to a point where we are the observer of it, and we're no longer led by it. We're no longer controlled by the ego mind, the lower mind, the monkey mind that the Buddhists call it. And I absolutely love it, because the whole sense of this, the energy of this book is way more Zen Buddhist than Christian, as it should be when we reach into spirituality, into that level. So I will be doing a book report when I finished it for you guys. But I did want to do a bit of a spiritual update here, because I feel like it's really, really important. And the dark powers, what they're doing, it occurred to me, what they're doing is they're trying to turn people away from the divine feminine, because it's the divine feminine that's going to pull us out of this mess. Not through political means, of course not. The system was designed to control, not liberate. The divine feminine is the energy that we must uplift right now and integrate, not shun or lean too far into. And we mustn't force her to act like the divine masculine, because that just won't work. That will put her so far out of balance. It's like when I'm seeing things like the football, the World Cup's happening right now, isn't it? And we see the women's football and people arguing, saying, oh, well, the female footballers should be paid just as much as the men, and it's not fair, and it's discrimination. And I look at it and think, it's just a game. Can we just go back to the people who want to enjoy it, and the people who don't? And, football has a very masculine energy. Not everyone wants to watch women's football. I don't watch any football at all, And it's not because I'm a woman that I would watch the women's game. You know who does watch the women's game? All my lesbian friends. They love it. And that's great. It used to literally be theirs. It was their thing that they used to watch. And then all of a sudden, the dark powers got hold of it and started trying to promote it in a distorted way to make people angry and divided about it. And that's just one example of what they're trying to do. So I wanted to pull some cards today and see what messages we have and what guidance we have to bring ourselves back into balance, so that we can uphold, elevate, and enjoy the divine feminine without feeling like it has to be a competition, because it doesn't, and it was never supposed to be. The masculine and feminine are supposed to complement each other, not compete with each other. They were supposed to cooperate, not fight. So we have breath of clarity, Eros. I love how that's come through. Oh my goodness. I'm thinking of the book Eros Denied, which I haven't read. I believe it's a work of psychology, but there's a connection to it there. I know Chrissy Sawyer talks about it quite a lot. And coincidentally, she uploaded a video for the first time in a long time yesterday, which was wonderful. I think it was yesterday, was wonderful to see. I only found it this morning. And then seeing and hearing. Creative outlaw, yes, and knowing. Okay. So if I can move these around so you can see them a bit better on my table. This is my new candle holder, which has all these lovely little shells in there, along with my sensor shells and my aquamarine crystal. Actually, that's not mine. That's James's aquamarine crystal. That's Mr. Moderator's crystal. Would you believe he has crystals now, since he's known me? He would never have had them before. I rub off on people. Right, I'm sure you do too. Breath of clarity on 25/7. Yes. 7, the mystic. 25 is a fascinating energy as well, because we have the divine priestess and the divine priest. That's interesting how I said that. In the tarot, it's called the high priestess and the high priest. That's curious. Maybe that's what Spirit want me to call them from now on. But bringing in clarity of understanding the roles of the divine masculine and divine feminine. But also the mind, and the logical mind, and the contradiction of reality. Because the logical mind can't always get its head around the contradiction of reality. the contradiction of spirituality, of spirit, of the higher realities of the world. And there's a new mysticism coming in for us now, and we have just had a very powerful new moon. And I feel this is what's brewing right now, is this new version of spirituality, which people are starting to breathe into, starting to step into, starting to have a deeper understanding of the workings of the universe, of what things mean, and seeing signs and symbols all around them, which is very beautiful, which we never used to see before. But we're bringing it down to earth now. We're drawing this wisdom down with the help of the moon. Reminds me of the ritual drawing down the moon. That might be something you do. But there's a very powerful energy right now which is bringing in a lot of wisdom that will stay with us. This doesn't feel like something fleeting. This feels like something coming in, new wisdom coming in to the collective right now, helping us to understand that two things can be true at once, that masculine can exist, but so can feminine, and they can both be perfect and different with many similarities. And I think that's probably the most important one. And it doesn't only apply to masculine and feminine, it applies to many opposites, many polarities. And then Eros coming in here with 48, 12-3. So 48, completion of karmic contract. So something is shifting, something is changing. You see, this is the divine yoni with this gorgeous snake working its way through. So we have the kundalini snake, the divine life force energy, and the birth canal together. So this divine life force, and life does start with Eros. It does start obviously with the liaison of masculine and feminine energies in a very erotic act, shall we say. I'm trying not to get banned on YouTube. So yes, that something's changed now. Something is due to change. Something is due to be different. Something is due to be more positive, which is very beautiful. Bringing back I'm getting the words bringing back the division of power. So it feels as though the masculine and feminine need to collaborate now, rather than fight or being opposed to one another. It's about collaboration here, and collaboration of those energies within ourselves as well, not just in the wider outer world. And seeing and hearing 38, 11, 2. Beautiful numerology here. So really being guided by higher spiritual powers. There's a lot of messages coming through. 38 is that which is constant, that which is eternal. That's love. That's the higher divine energy guiding our blueprint, guiding our lives now. So I think the path is going to be shown to us. It will be shown to us through our intuition so that we can create new with the creative outlaw. We will be able to create to birth this new world, to birth this new creation through our passion, through inspiration. It's very exciting energy coming in, very high spiritual energy. And coming in through knowing, yes, it will literally just come through. We won't have to read a book to find it. It will be something that we know. And that's not to say that we don't have, we're not allowed to read books. Of course we are. Of course we're allowed to do that as well. But I feel like reading this particular, I want to call it an oeuvre, which is what the French would call it, which is a work. I feel like I'm going to read it, but I'm going to get so much more from it as I read it on some level. And I don't know if I'm going to read the whole thing. We'll find out. It may be one of these books that I dip into and dip out again, like Women Who Run with the Wolves, which is a stunning work, which has taken me to so many places on my spiritual journey, my healing journey. And it's not something I can just sit down and read, because every time I read a part of it, I have to go away and digest it and integrate the different aspects of healing that come from that book. And it's difficult to explain if you haven't read that sort of thing before. But that is my experience of it. Some people, I'm sure, could just sit down and read it and it wouldn't hit them on all those different levels, but it does for me. So, Emperor. Yeah. It's time for the divine masculine to become the emperor. And I love it's coming in with this Aries energy here. Absolutely gorgeous. It's time for the emperor to uplift the empress, to support the divine feminine, to give her the space to grow and to step back into power. And something that that has been in my consciousness recently is that many people, well, some people, mistake kindness for weakness. And if you are kind to them and they are not at that level of energy or spiritual awareness, they will mistake that as weakness and think you're stupid. Why are you giving me this? Oh my God, you're so stupid. I wouldn't give this to you. I'm going to take advantage of you as a result. And there have been many people in my life that have taken advantage of my kindness. And that has been a difficult lesson, knowing who to give my energy to and when, and who deserves what level of and aspect of my kindness and my energy as well. That's been a difficult lesson because there are people out there who will use you, absolutely. And it also makes me very protective of people who are very kind and loving and giving. I'll be very protective of them because sometimes they will try to give their time and energy to me, and I know I don't need it, and I know I could very easily take it, but I refuse to do that. And that's a temptation that many people can't pass up. And that may be a temptation on your path or something that you see happen around you that you may be being asked to intervene. So beautiful, beautiful energies coming in. So I'm going to bring the Oracle of the Roses in now, which I adore because it is a stunning deck. I mean, look at this. It's got this gorgeous shiny red on the sides. You guys know I love the card decks that have the metallic edges because they're so much easier to shuffle. They're generally very nice to handle. And this is a particularly beautiful one. Okay. The Explorer. It's an old garden rose, so there's old wisdom coming through, inviting us to explore. But we know we won't be going backwards. There's no need for that. The Rebel, yes. A wild rose. That's an Austrian briar rose. For some reason, Australian came through there, so that's a connection. It's an Aimé Vibert rose. That sounds like someone's name. And the Mother, there it is, which is another old garden rose, an old blush rose. So we have the divine feminine energy coming through very strongly here. So the Mother energy allowing the child to explore, to become the rebel, to do things differently, to learn under the watchful and protective eye of the Mother. So spiritually, this is where we are. Spiritually, we are under the eye of like a divine feminine mother energy who is here to protect us and allow us to explore and grow and become a new version of the divine feminine, to become a new, more expanded version of the divine feminine. And this is our job, if you like, our task, our spiritual lesson right now, to become that wider, more expanded version of the divine feminine, to understand the divine feminine energy on a deeper level, and not just to cast her out and say, oh no, this is a waste of time, I don't like how messy everything looks right now, we'd better go back to the old patriarchal system and just let the divine masculine take charge again, because it was so much simpler, so much easier, and so much better. Well, actually, if you're a woman, no it wasn't. And no it isn't. And even for men, it puts them out of balance too. When they are too much in power, it puts them completely out of balance, and it actually halts their spiritual progress as well. It's very vitally important that we find a way to settle our differences, but also to integrate the different aspects of self right now, and to not allow ourselves to be swayed by various political agendas, which are very potent right now, and some very upsetting stories on both sides, left and right, trying to invoke a lot of emotion, trying to invoke emotional responses so that people can be more easily manipulated and corralled into certain thought patterns. But we need to actually go a step or two above that. I'd say 10 steps above that, Yes, look at the situation, but go 10 steps above it and leave the ideologies behind, leave the politics behind. Go higher and see what you actually see when you get to that higher level. It is time to be a spiritual rebel right now. The alchemist. There we go. Modern garden rose. So the modern energy, the modern solution, which is being built on the foundation of the old through this rebellious energy, through this new learning, this new spirituality, this new mysticism that we're learning, is to become the alchemist, the one that can create gold, the metaphorical gold that we can create to make this world better, more loving, with this beautiful soft pink, to activate the higher heart chakra. And its time has come, because we have number 40 here. This is the moment. This is the moment now. I'm calling it. This is the moment where we find this new higher way of being, this higher way of finding common ground and cooperating and collaborating. And we're going to see it, people coming together. We're already seeing various grassroots movements coming together, but in kindness, in compassion, with a genuine desire to help, to support, and to show love to each other. And love doesn't mean giving someone exactly what they want all the time. Sometimes the most loving thing you can say is to say no. Sometimes the most loving thing to do is to hold a boundary. Okay, it's not about giving someone exactly what they want all the time. And I learnt this in my customer service training. What's good customer service? Does it mean giving the customer exactly what they want all the time? Well, no, because they may not be able to have that. That's ridiculous. It's finding positive solutions, working together. Madame Caroline Testu-Rose. Okay, so beautiful French energy coming in here with these French names, Aimée and Caroline Testu. So there's definitely a French connection here, which is possibly why I have this book, which is in French language. And being an older work, I imagine it's in the older French language, which I actually prefer, because Old French is really easy to read if you're an Anglophone. If English is your mother tongue, the construction of the sentences and the grammar is much closer to modern English than it is to modern French. So when I was living in France, and I went to college in France, you guys may know, I went to high school and college in France, just for 5 years. That was long enough. And when we were studying French literature that was a little bit older, I found it much easier to understand than the French kids, because the construction of the sentences was very easy and very familiar for me, and not for them, which was unexpected, because usually my French lessons were much more of a challenge than that, but certain older works were much easier for me to read, so there's that. So perhaps we are going to find wisdom coming through from much older works, from much older times, rather than more recent ones. Maybe the language will be different, maybe not what we're used to, but the wisdom's coming through for us right now. I'm trying to hold the camera. It's coming through because it's time. It's coming through because it's the moment for us to wake up to this, to remember and to create new. So we go to the mother, she supports us, teaches us what she knows, and then we can move forwards and create something even better. And as they say, the student should always surpass the master, and that's what we should be aiming to do right now. And I'm loving this energy. I hope you are. It may be challenging, because remember, roses have thorns. Okay, they have thorns. It hurts to get to the flowers. Sometimes we can get scratched and pricked, and it can be painful and difficult, but it is oh so worth it. And it is time right now to create this new way of being, this new spirituality, and some important new lessons are going to be coming through for all of us. So remember to smell the roses along the way. Take care of yourselves. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, hype this video, share it with a friend, and I will see you all again very soon. Till then, please take very good care of yourselves. Bye-bye.